In 2013, the left went nuts over a rodeo clown. The rodeo clown was performing at the Missouri State Fair. He had the awful temerity to wear a mask of then-President Obama. "We're going to stomp Obama now," an announcer said. "Hey, I know I'm a clown," the rodeo clown replied. "He's just running around acting like one, doesn't know he is one." The media quoted a bystander who compared the act to a KKK rally. The lieutenant governor of the state condemned the act, as did one of the senators. The rodeo clown was fired, even though he'd dressed up as other presidents in the past and done the exact same routine. Fast forward 4 years. On Tuesday, TMZ posted photos of comedian Kathy Griffin, who has helped host CNN's New Year's Eve coverage for a decade, holding a mock-up of President's severed head covered in blood. Griffin has a long record of anti-Trump sentiment, of course. In February, she told MSNBC's Chris Matthews, quote, "I'm a big resistor, and I don't believe in compromise with this president. I also think he's crazy. I think he's mentally ill. He's also an idiot." But this photo shoot crossed a rather obvious line. It celebrated Trump's prospective murder. Imagine if anyone on the right had done something similar with Obama. The outcry would have been deafening. Yet, the same people who ask for trigger warnings for material that might offend anyone, the same people who believe there's a rape culture that pervades America, the same people who say President Trump has incentivized a culture of political violence across the land, many of them are silent about Griffin's antics. Why? Because political violence is no longer taboo in the U.S. It's just another tactic to utilize when useful and denigrate when others engaged in it. That sentiment expresses itself on both sides of the political aisle. When Montana House candidate Greg Gianforte allegedly body-slammed a reporter, prominent conservatives, including talk show host Laura Ingraham, demeaned his victim as a wuss and championed Gianforte as a sort of stalwart man's man. When leftists attacked Trump rallies during the 2016 election cycle, the media attempted to paint them as the defenders of the common good against Trump himself. The overused phrase cycle of violence is often used by the press to refer to situations in which an aggressor acts violently and somebody defends him. But we've entered an actual cycle in political violent rhetoric, whereby the vileness of the left provokes a direct response from the right and vice versa, and it's getting worse. If you spend all day proclaiming that you're in a civil war with other Americans, that you're part of a resistance, it's only a matter of time until you become willing to look the other way at violence itself. If Americans aren't your brothers and sisters, if we disagree, then they will quickly become your enemies. Kathy Griffin may think it's hilarious to hold up a bloody head of the President of the United States, but she's tearing away at the social fabric far more than President Trump is, and those who backed her play are helping provoke their enemies to respond in kind. I'm Ben Shapiro. This is The Ben Shapiro Show. So, Donald Trump did a very, very, very good thing, and we are very happy about that today. So we'll be discussing all aspects of the Paris Accord, what Trump did, what he said. He gave what I thought was the best speech of his presidency thus far. Really, really good speech that he gave about the Paris Accords yesterday. Before we get to that, though, I want to say thank you to our sponsors over at Upside.com. So this is the best new way to travel. If you are interested in traveling for cheap, if you are interested in receiving back hundreds of dollars in gift cards from Amazon.com with every purchase, you go to Upside.com and use a radio listener promo, Ben. Here's the way they do it. They bundle your flight and your hotel together, and because they are specifically designed for business travelers, so they're really designed for a person traveling alone, they get the cheapest prices available. Bundling saves money, especially on business travel, so Upside actually gives you back free Amazon gift cards. If you're a frequent business traveler, your company saves a bunch of money on the price, and you personally get thousands a year just for buying your air and hotel together at Upside.com, and you still get all your miles. It's foolish not to check it out. Upside.com, if you're shopping for business or personal travel, it takes 3 minutes to see how much you can save by buying your flights and hotel together for one low price. And right now, if you use the code Ben, if you use my name Ben, you're guaranteed to get at least a $200 Amazon gift card on your very first trip. My name Ben gets you a $200 Amazon gift card on your very first trip. Again, you save big and you get the big gift card kicked back to you every single trip. Upside.com, terrific service. Minimum purchase is required. See the site for complete details. And remember, use that promo code Ben so you get the $200 in gift cards. Pretty hefty gift right there. Get $200 in gift cards with minimum purchase, and also that lets them know that we sent you, so they continue to sponsor the program. We continue to bring it to you. Okay, so President Trump, in my absence, I leave for 2 days, and many a thing has happened, but the big thing that happened is a very good thing, and that is President Trump came out and he rejected the Paris Accord. So for people who don't know what the Paris Accord is, I think that it's important to spell what this is out so people understand. First of all, it was basically the accord was President Obama, in the very last days of his administration, he went to Paris and he met with all of these nations, and they all agreed to voluntarily submit these non-binding resolutions on how they were going to cut their carbon emissions. That's basically what it was. Now, there are a couple problems here. Number one, non-binding. Number two, none of the resolutions was rejected. And there was nobody there who said, well, Congo, you did a terrible job here. This is, whatever country it is. France, you're not recommending that you cut enough. China, you're not recommending that you cut enough. So we reject your resolution. We want you to bring a new resolution to the table, and here's an enforcement mechanism. Basically, it was like you and a group of your friends pledge that you're going to lose weight, and you get to pick your own target. So you have a friend who comes in and says, I want to lose 1 pound over the next 6 months. And everyone goes, yay! And your friend really needs to lose 50 pounds? Not a useful thing. Also, no enforcement mechanism. So if they don't lose the 1 pound, nobody says to them, that was kind of bad. You said you were going to lose a pound and you didn't. So it was basically just a bunch of people slapping each other on the back, pretending they were doing something for the world when actually they weren't doing anything for the world. Trump pulls out of the accord because what he says is it's just a way for people to generate anti-U.S. headlines. In other words, Obama committed to a bunch of resolutions about lowering our carbon emissions that we were never going to meet, knowing that his successor would then have to eat it, right? That if we didn't meet those resolutions, then his successor, the United States, would then be labeled as backing off its commitments, being ripped up and down. He was making a promise that somebody else's body was going to have to cash. And because of that, Trump says, look, this whole agreement is a joke and we're pulling out. So Trump speaks yesterday and he gives a very good speech. This is why he was elected. It was for stuff like this. Here he was explaining what exactly it would do to the United States to abide by the actual resolutions that we had adopted with regard to the Paris Accord.
Compliance with the terms of the Paris Accord and the onerous energy restrictions that is placed on the United States could cost America as much as 2.7 million lost jobs by 2025, according to the National Economic Research Associates. This includes 440,000 fewer manufacturing jobs, not what we need. Believe me, this is not what we need, including automobile jobs and the further decimation of vital American industries on which countless communities rely. They rely for so much, and we would be giving them so little. According to the same study, by 2040, compliance with the commitments put into place by the previous administration would cut production for the following sectors: paper, down 12%. Cement, down 23%. Iron and steel, down 38%. Coal, and I happen to love the coal miners, down 86%. Natural gas down 31%.
Okay, so the reason that this is good, what he's doing right here, is he's spelling out a trade-off that Obama refused to acknowledge actually occurs. And that trade-off is, if you place heavy regulations on American industries, jobs are lost. If you place heavy regulations on American carbon emissions, then there's going to be an economic cost to that. And people on the right and the left pretend that this is not the case. Trump, you'll see later, actually pretends the opposite is the case. He says, well, we can have all the environmentalism we want, and we can also have as much economic growth as we want. Not super true, but his balance is closer to the correct balance than Obama's balance was close to the correct balance. So he spells out the cost to Americans, and he's not going to lose a single vote in 2018 or 2020 based on this. There are a lot of people who feel like these regulations, and I've spoken in Pennsylvania recently, you talk to manufacturers in Pennsylvania, they are afraid the regulations are going to destroy their industry, and they are right. He continues along these lines, and he points out that there would be a lot of loss in the economy if you continue along the lines of these Paris Accords.
The cost to the economy at this time would be close to $3 trillion in lost GDP and 6.5 million industrial jobs, while households would have $7,000 less income, and in many cases, much worse than that.
Okay, and this is, again, true. What he's saying is that basically the cost of energy production go up dramatically when you put heavy regulations on energy production, and that means that people are going to have less money to spend on other things. Again, true. He continues along these lines, and this is where, when Trump said America first, there are people who were saying, okay, if you were talking about this kind of stuff, then I'm with him. Okay, when he says America first, what he should be meaning is that we can't allow other countries to go on doing exactly what they want with their industries and then unilaterally cut our own economy to no net effect. He picks on China here, and he's right to pick on China. China's not going to make any serious emissions cuts. All of the emissions cuts that China has talked about under the Paris Accord are things that they are already doing. They're things that are already occurring. So, for example, in alone, the United States, in the last couple of years, we've cut our carbon emissions by 3%. That's not because of regulations. That's because natural gas has replaced, in many cases, coal production, and natural gas gives off less emissions than coal production. It's because our cars are getting more efficient. In other words, free markets make more green energy than do government mandates. Government mandates just make people poorer. But China, is going to be able to do what they want, and we're supposed to regulate ourselves to no effect. Here's Trump saying that.
For example, under the agreement, China will be able to increase these emissions by a staggering number of years, 13. They can do whatever they want for 13 years, not us. India makes its participation contingent on receiving billions and billions and billions of dollars in foreign aid from developed countries. There are many other examples, but the bottom line is that the Paris Accord is very unfair at the highest level to the United States.
I don't think there are a lot of Americans who are going to disagree with that, and he is correct that the reason the rest of the world is so intent on the United States picking up the burden is because they would like to see the United States taken down a peg on the global economic level. He points that out, and again, this is exactly correct from President Trump.
The rest of the world applauded when we signed the Paris Agreement. They went wild. They were so happy. For the simple reason that it put our country, the United States of America, which we all love, at a very, very big economic disadvantage. A cynic would say the obvious reason for economic competitors and their wish to see us remain in the agreement is so that we continue to suffer this self-inflicted major economic wound.
Stop there, but that's exactly right. Finally, the final point that he makes that's really an important one is that even if we were to comply by all of the resolutions that have been undertaken in the Paris Accord, again, non-binding resolutions undertaken in the Paris Accord, it wouldn't really make much of a difference over the course of the century. So here he is explaining, using data from MIT, that if people just did what they were talking about under the Paris Accord, it wouldn't actually do anything, but it would hurt the economy pretty badly.
Even if the Paris Agreement were implemented in full, with total compliance from all nations, it is estimated it would only produce a 0.2 of 1 degree. Think of that. This much Celsius reduction in global temperature by the year 2100. Tiny, tiny amount. In fact, 14 days of carbon emissions from China alone would wipe out the gains from America, and this is an incredible statistic, would totally wipe out the gains from America's expected reductions in the year 2030. After we have had to spend billions and billions of dollars, lost jobs, closed factories, and suffered.
Exactly right, and this is Trump doing the right thing. He drops a line in here that I think really sums up what his presidency should be about, what he's always said it was about. He said, I was elected to represent the citizens of Pittsburgh, not Paris. And that is totally fair. That is a smart political line. Now, the left has absolutely lost its mind over this, and I want to talk in 1 second about that. But first, I want to talk about all of the reasons why what Trump did was right. But before I even get to that, first I want to say thank you to our sponsors over at Indochino. So the nicest suit that I currently own is a suit from Indochino. It's a tailored suit. It's kind of a blue-gray suit, really beautiful suit, and it's tailored to me. The way that it works, you go over to Indochino.com, and they ask for all sorts of measurements on. You can measure it yourself. You can go over to one of their stores. Indochino has one in Beverly Hills that I went to, and they suit you up. I mean, you pick your fabric, you pick the weave, you pick the lining, you pick all the various options. Do you want cuffs on your pants? Do you not want cuffs? Do you want pleats? I mean, basically all the options, and it's customized just for you. Men look better in tailored suits. Just a fact. There's a reason Bond only wears tailored suits. Indochino makes that happen for you right now. If you go to Indochino and INDOCHINO.com and use promo code Shapiro, you can get any premium Indochino suit for just $379. So that's like an off-the-rack price suit, but it's actually tailored to you. It's tailored to you, so it fits you absolutely perfectly. And by the way, if they tailor it wrong, you just bring it back in, and they will fix it for you at their shop, or you can send it back to them for fixes. So Indochino.com. Right now, my listeners get any of those premium Indochino suits for just $379 at Indochino.com. When you enter Shapiro at checkout, that also lets them know that we sent you, which is great for us. 50% off the regular price for made-to-measure premium suits. And again, shipping is free. It fits you better than anything you're going to get off the rack ever would, because it is made just for you. I mean, they do things that are really sophisticated with the suit. Like when they were fitting it to me, they actually said, "Okay, we're going to move the shoulders forward. We're going to release the bicep because you're just so massive in the bicep." And it was and the suit really looks good. I mean, they sent it to me in a beautiful box. I take it out. It fits perfectly. It's great. Indochino.com, promo code Shapiro. Okay, so a few more notes about the Paris Accord, and then I want to get to the left's insane reaction to this because it's totally over the top. So, number one, the Accord was actually a treaty, but Obama never treated it that way. So, if Obama really thought this was super duper duper important, then what he should have done is signed the Paris Accords with some pretty significant American restrictions on carbon emissions, and then submitted it to the Senate and used his bully pulpit to get it approved. Remember, treaties under the U.S. Constitution must be approved by 2/3 of the Senate. So, if he thinks it's that important, if the world is at stake, if we're all going to die, if it's going to be the day after tomorrow and Dennis Quaid's going to be hiding in the subway station while the waves pour through New York City, then you would think you might be able to get 2/3 of senators to vote for this thing. Obama couldn't even do that when he had 60 senators from the Democratic Party there. So the idea that this is ever going to be a political winner for Democrats is really stupid. Also, if you're going to do a treaty, do a treaty. Second, there are some significant legal implementation problems with the Paris Accord. So Donald McGahn is the White House counsel. He pointed out that theoretically you could have a court that would strike down the EPA's proposals to kill some of these anti-coal regulations on the basis of the Paris Accords. Now, legally, should they be able to do that? No. The left says the courts wouldn't do that. Of course, the left also said 15, 20 years ago that the courts wouldn't impose gay marriage from above, and then they did that. So whenever the left says the courts will not do this, what they really mean is the courts won't do this tomorrow, but in the next 6 months, maybe. Third, this would have had no impact. Okay, like none. Okay, the statistic that Trump cites there, where he says the global climate would be lowered by a grand total of 0.2 degrees Celsius by 2100 if we kept by the Paris Accord, that is 100% true. MIT is saying, no. That's only if people stopped abiding by their obligations in 2030. Right, but the Paris Accord only runs through 2030. So what is he supposed to assume, that we're going to ratchet it up after 2030? He can't make assumptions about facts not in evidence. Fourth, it lets other countries free ride. Oren Cass points out a Commentary magazine today. China committed to begin reducing emissions by 2030, roughly when its economic development would have caused this to happen anyway. India made no emissions commitment, pledging only to make progress on efficiency, at half the rate it had progressed in recent years. Pakistan outdid the rest, submitting a single page that offered to, quote, reduce its emissions after reaching peak levels to the extent possible. This is a definition of the word peak, not a commitment. An April report by Transport Environment found only 3 European countries pursuing policies in line with their Paris commitments, and one of these, Germany, has now seen 2 straight years of emissions increases. The Philippines has outright renounced its commitment. A study published by the American Geophysical Union warns that India's planned coal plant construction is incompatible with its own targets. And all of this is fine. The only people who get ripped are the United States because, of course, we're the most powerful. We're also supposed to fund like 1/3 of the entire commitment for all of the Paris Accord redistribution. Is we're supposed to put like $3 billion in. Obama and the left have been claiming for years that this was going to create jobs. No evidence it's going to create jobs. Paris Accord was basically meaningless. Now, that said, it is important to point out that the Trump pulling out of it doesn't actually materially change much because the Paris Accords weren't going to be implemented in any case. They're going to have the same shelf life as the Kyoto Protocol, adopted by the Clinton administration in 1997, never ratified by the Senate, and basically DOA. So it's a big symbolic move, but symbolism matters when it comes to this stuff, and it's the symbolism the left is going nuts over. So the left has completely lost its mind. And it's really funny stuff. So we're going to discuss all that. But for that, you're going to have to go over to dailywire.com right now and become a subscriber. For $8 a month, you can subscribe at dailywire.com. You can be part of the mailbag, which we are doing today, and it will be spectacular. We'll take live questions. You can get all of your life's questions answered. You can see Andrew Klavan's show live. You can be part of Klavan's mailbag as well. We have lots of other goodies coming. And right now, if you become an annual subscriber, even if you're a regular subscriber, if you buy an annual subscription now, if you upgrade and become an annual subscriber, you get a free signed copy a brand new book by me and my dad called Say It So, Papa Dad Me, and the 2005 White Sox champion season. It's all about fathers and sons in baseball. I think it's a really fun, interesting, and kind of heartwarming book. It's great for Father's Day, perfect Father's Day gift. They're imprinting right now, so if you've already ordered, just wait a few days. We're in the process of getting all of those signed for you. I will sign it for you. You get a free autographed copy when you become an annual subscriber. So go over to dailywire.com right now and check it out. We appreciate it. If you just want to listen later, go to iTunes or SoundCloud, become a subscriber, and then make sure that you leave us a review over at iTunes, because we know that apparently it affects iTunes rankings for some odd reason. But in any case, make sure that you subscribe. We appreciate your listenership. We are the largest conservative podcast in the nation. So, even if you believe that global warming is a problem, and I happen to believe that the world is warming, I don't know to what extent the world is warming, because no one knows to what extent the world is warming. There's a range of options that have been provided, ranging from 2 or 3 degrees Fahrenheit over the course of the next century to 7 or 8 degrees Fahrenheit over the course of the next century. The average that the IPCC put forward was 7 degrees over the next century, raising water levels something like 6 feet total. Even if that were to happen, that's not the end of the world. Water levels have changed over time. So then you have to say, okay, what is the best way to deal with that? Is the best way to deal with that with these global carbon regulations that may not even have an impact enough to actually stop that? Or should we be spending the money to shore up cities? Should we be spending that money to allow private industry to develop new products? Lots of reasonable reasons to think the Paris Accords are stupid. And even if you're an advocate of harsh regulation on climate change, the Paris Accords don't actually accomplish anything because, again, they are non-binding voluntary commitments that don't mean anything, and none of those commitments can be rejected by the international community. Nevertheless, the left feels like it has an issue here, even though they don't, and so they're all losing their mind. Jerry Brown, who's literally at this point an old man yelling at the moon, the governor of our stupid state of California, here he is on CNN saying that everyone is going to die. People are going to die.
Well, the reaction is this is a crazy decision. It's against the facts. It's against science. It's against reality itself. We know we have to decarbonize our future. If we don't, it's a horror. People are going to die. Habitat will be destroyed. Seas will rise. Insects will spread in areas they've never been before. This is not a game. It's not politics to talk to your base. It's humanity and whether it makes it through the 21st century. So California will stay the course. We're already embarked upon a very aggressive and imaginative program to reduce our own global greenhouse gases, and we're going to join with others. I'm going to China. I'm going to meet with high officials there. We'll have a China-California plan. We are going to meet with people representing 1 billion people, 30% of the world's economy. This is our under two coalition.
Brown thinks he's going to win primaries. Jerry Brown actually wants to run for president, this crazy old loon. And even though he's destroying the state of California, they're talking about passing single payer here in the state of California, which will only drive out half the business in the state of California by doubling the budget immediately and forcing a doubling of the tax. But there's Jerry Brown. The biblical plagues will be upon us. The frogs will emerge from the rivers. They will sit in your ovens. The locusts will descend from the skies. The hail will kill all the cattle, all of them. There will be no cows left. But we in California are going to solve all that because I'm going to China, which is very far away and where the people are funny looking. And then I'm going to do lots of things. Where am I? Why do I? What is? Oh. Jerry Brown, governor of California. We've been living with him for literally decades at this point. Last time he was governor before this was before I was born. Really, he was governor from 76 to 80. I was born in 84. But Governor Brown says people will die because of climate change. Again, gonna need some evidence for that. And also, if you continue to cripple the state of California's economy, then people are going to move out. Yes, even the people over in Silicon Valley. Fareed Zakaria does the same thing, except he says we've resigned as leaders of the free world, as though leadership of the free world means that we have to, kill all the coal miners or something.
This will be the day that the United States resigned as the leader of the free world. It's nothing short of that. The irresponsibility of this act is breathtaking because the Paris Climate Accords are actually extraordinarily flexible. They do not dilute American sovereignty. They allow every country to make its own plans. That's why countries that have jealously guarded their sovereignty, like China, like India, like Russia, have all signed on. There are 194 other countries that have signed on to this.
Okay, I love this. I love that we've resigned our leadership of the free world because we refuse to join a club that means nothing. Right? A club where everybody sits around going, pat on the back, man. You said you were going to close a coal plant in like 30 years when that coal plant was already going to be defunct. Yeah, just good on you, man. Just you really handled that. Okay, American leadership in the world, it turns out, is a little bit more than everybody. If you could just put in this little suggestion box, you're volunteering suggestions for carbon emissions. Meanwhile, we're going to destroy our economy. It's just silly. What's funny about the left is they're saying two separate things. They're saying the Paris Accords are super important, super vital, super necessary. And then at the same exact time, they're saying they don't actually do that much. Like, they don't do it. So why is he withdrawing? Because they're not doing it. Okay, you can't have it both ways. Either they're important and they do stuff, or they're not important and they don't do stuff. The truth is the latter. They're not important and they don't do stuff, which is why Trump is right to pull out of them. Trevor Noah, the second least funny person on earth after Amy Schumer, he's in a tie with Lena Dunham. Kathy Griffin made a quantum leap this week, so she may have actually leapt to the top of the pile. But Trevor Noah is always in the mix. Here he is being with his South African accent, talking about Donald Trump in the tones of foreign sophistication.
You know, I don't know what's worse. The fact that Donald Trump may have doomed the planets, or the fact that he announced it like it's an episode of The Bachelorettes. Earth, we had a great time in the hot tub. But I gotta give a rose to Cole, my black beauty. I choose you. It's official, people. Donald Trump has pulled the United States out of the biggest climate agreement the world has ever seen. And we all joke about him destroying the world, but this could be it. And can I just say, telling nature to go f*** itself while standing in a garden is a pretty gangster move. I'm not gonna lie. Like, the only way that could have been more messed up is if he did it with a polar bear standing in the background. Yeah, although I'm sure Eric would have shown up and shot the polar bear. Father, look what I brought you. Do you love me now?
How is this a show? How is he, like, on TV? I don't know who the writers are. Did Jon Stewart leave with all the writers? Did they all just go away when they left it to Trevor Noah? Okay, again, this whole we're all going to die because of a meaningless agreement that does absolutely nothing and requires nothing of anyone is just the stupidest thing in the world. But this sort of hysteria is it's become stock and trade for the left, which is why no one takes them seriously anymore. Like, if they would just say, listen, the agreement didn't do a lot of things, but it was a step in the right direction, and it's a mistake for Trump to do this. It's something that we're going to have to push back against. If you elect us, then we will start making these commitments again, and we'll try to push for something that is a little bit more, we'll try to push for something that's a little bit more binding. We want something a little bit stricter than this. That's a reasonable critique, okay? These are not reasonable critiques. Here's the Huffington Post headline, okay? Trump to planet, drop dead, and then the planet on fire. On fire. Again, MIT estimates that if all the commitments under the current agreement, not future agreements, the current agreement were kept, the temperature would change by 2100 by 0.2 degrees Celsius. That's not the planet on fire, gang. That's you barely having a temperature. Okay, that's you at like 99.5. It's not even like technically you having a temperature. So the whole thing is just ridiculous. But the left is over its skis, of course. And what I want to point out here is that what Trump did here, people keep saying that Trump has a really hard job. Trump's having a hard time. He had a really hard job. It's very tough for him. No, he doesn't. What he did yesterday was actually very simple, and it got everyone on board. Like, everyone is on board. Here's Mike Lee. Mike Lee's been Trump skeptical from the beginning. He's a Utah senator, one of the few honest men left in the United States Senate, and here he says Trump did the exact right thing.
The health care thing, the tax thing, I was talking to Wilbur Ross, the Commerce Secretary. He's getting a little fidgety about Congress and moving on any of this stuff. Are you?
No, I'm convinced that we're going to pass health care reform and tax reform this year. We've got to repeal Obamacare. We've run it for 7 years. If we don't, it's going to be very bad because we've run on this. The president ran on this. People in the House and the Senate campaigned on this for 7 years. We have to repeal it, and we've got to move forward and deliver relief to the American people who are suffering under the yoke of this incredible burden thrust upon them by the Affordable Care Act.
How do you think President Trump is doing?
I think he's doing well, and I think what he did today showed real leadership. I think it showed courage, and I commend him for doing this. I commend him also.
The point is, it's not hard to get conservatives on board with you by doing things that drive the left up a wall. So there are a lot of conservatives out there who are happy with Trump because he, quote-unquote, drives the left up a wall. Right, but driving the left up a wall by doing something dumb and driving the left up the wall by doing something smart are not the same thing. He did something smart, he drove the left up a wall, and he unified all of the conservatives. Plus, he made an outreach play to all the people working in the industries, as he likes to say, all across the fruited plain. That's smart politics. This is stuff what Trump is capable of doing. And one of the things that I think that this is important to point out here, Dennis Prager had a piece earlier this week in National Review, which I love Dennis, but I thought it was a really bad piece. And the piece basically said that never Trumpers are still, they don't get it. It's all been, he's still going on about never Trumpers. Okay, as somebody who didn't vote for Trump or Hillary Clinton, let me point something out. Never Trump no longer exists. Never Trump was, I'm not voting for Trump because he didn't earn my vote. But Never Trump doesn't exist anymore. He's the president now. He does good things, he does bad things. I spent this entire show talking up how good it is what Trump just did with the Paris Climate Accords. Does that seem like me being hypercritical of Trump? Does it seem like me sitting here wishing for him to fail? No, I'm wishing for him to succeed, just like the vast majority of people who didn't vote for either of these two candidates. And the reason that's important is because if Trump does the right things, we can all unify. The point is, if we don't hold him to account, then he's not going to do the right things. And if he does the right things, we are more than happy to praise him. We're overjoyed to praise him because we'd like to see him do all of the right things. The problem right now is not some Never Trump base that's undercutting him, the stab in the back theory. The problem is that when Trump makes a mistake, it's Trump making the mistake, and then people cheering him on because they wish to portray all of his mistakes as grand and good things. How about this? How about we treat him like any other human being? When he does good things, they're good. And when he does bad things, they're bad. It's not never Trump or always Trump. It's sometimes Trump. Just like it's sometimes Shapiro. Just like it's sometimes you, right? Sometimes you do good stuff. Sometimes you do bad stuff. And you shouldn't be praised when you do bad stuff. And you shouldn't be booed when you do good stuff. It's that simple. Okay, so we've reached the end of the week. By the way, big announcement. Next week, starting next week, we are going 5 days a week. So we will have a Friday show as well. So your life has become 1/5 richer. So congratulations to you. We'll see you back here on Monday. I'm Ben Shapiro. This is The Ben Shapiro Show.
President Donald Trump wants to pull out of the Paris Climate Accord. So this is something that everybody is talking about right now. Good. I'm all for it. It's one of those issues where it's had a rough couple of weeks. I have no problem praising Donald Trump for wanting to pull out of it. Now, by the way, I was in Cancun when there was a climate summit. Back then, it was the Kyoto Protocol. For people who don't know what this accord exactly is, it used to be the Kyoto Protocol. It was that for many, many, many years. In Cancun, I remember seeing Ted Turner go up and advocate for China's one-child policy. Classic. And people wanting to put tariffs and taxes on energy. So the Paris Climate Accord, was adopted by consensus in December 2015, signed April 2016, and went into effect in November 2016. So it's been about a year. And
pretty new.
Yeah, it's pretty new. And President Donald Trump has said, you know what, no, I don't think it's fair to the United States, and I want to pull out. Now, people will say you're a climate change denier. That's not necessarily the case. A lot of people will present this argument, and I understand it. They say, listen, if climate change, though, if it is real, and if it is catastrophic and imminent, don't we have to do something? Why wouldn't you do something? Okay, well, let me give you a few arguments as to why we wouldn't do this thing. This proposal would create an average shortfall of nearly 400,000 jobs in the United States. That's over 200,000 manufacturing jobs. An income loss of more than $20,000 annually over the course of this proposal for a family of four. GDP loss of the United States for up to $2.5 trillion. An increase in household energy expenditures by 13 to 20%. So this also disproportionately asks Americans to curb and pay for the world's carbon emissions. Specifically, it asks for Americans. America, India, and China are the ones that they claim are the biggest, carbon emitters. But then if you look at the list of people who've pledged the most amount, the United States, right at the top. China, nowhere on that list.
None.
Yeah, I'll get right on that. You expect these other third world countries who have no EPAs, they couldn't care less about environmental regulations to play on an even playing field alongside the United States. So what ends up happening? It ends up hurting the United States economy. And as with everything else, we're the world's greatest peacekeeping force, we're the world's greatest humanitarian force. They want us to foot the bill for everybody else's carbon emissions. And here's what's so telling. There is almost a direct correlation between carbon emissions and advancement in technology and innovation. And thank God for the United States and their advancement in innovation. And this bill would disproportionately harm the American populace. The term globalist has been thrown around so flippantly it's lost all meaning. This is a globalist bill with other foreign governments having the right to mandate, to create sanctions, and tell Americans what they can and can't do with their economy, with their energy. This bill is basically asking the United States economy to just bend over and take it. We're going to have Gary Wilson on after this to discuss the negative ramifications of pornography. That's the kind of show you signed up for. What we're talking, I was watching CNN this morning, and they were talking about green energy jobs. And it was telling me because someone was talking about, how we need to access all of our energy resources right now, whatever that is, with fracking, coal. And someone on there, I don't know who it was a DNC strategist, something like, I think Elizabeth Granholm was on there as well. And they said, well, you know what, this is a lie from President Trump. He's promising to bring back jobs he couldn't possibly. Coal, there aren't enough coal jobs. Most jobs have gone to green energy, to solar, to wind. Well, no crap, stupid. We had a president who put moratoriums, who said he had no problem with putting the coal industry out of business while simultaneously subsidizing green energy, renewable energy that doesn't work.
Solyndra.
And by the way, is opposed by Democrats because Ted Kennedy didn't want to have windmills outside of his country home. So yeah, it's remarkable how many jobs will be lost in a sector that you cripple through government intervention while simultaneously using our tax dollars to pay for other sources of energy regardless of market. Well, in Germany, the government decided to force the economy into green, renewable forms of energy. Solar, wind, what happened? Well, guess what? If there's not enough solar power, if there's not enough wind power, they don't have giant generators. So they can harness this power and keep it for an entire country, for entire cities. So what they would have is they would have droughts when they didn't have enough wind or solar. And then when they would have a surplus of wind or solar, they would have to sell their energy at negative price points where they were actually losing money. It is incredibly unreliable. Oh, and by the way, their carbon emissions are still up. Surprise! We know the negative effects that this specific bill would have on the United States. That's why America first, by the way, doesn't mean America by its lonesome. Someone in the Trump campaign actually said that recently. I thought that's a good way to put it.
Yeah. Sure.
But we're not a global community. That's just not accurate. We still are a world with borders and countries, and you do need to look out for your own country's best. You don't think China is? There's a reason they haven't pledged anything. It's not because you caught them at the wrong time right after the Jerry Lewis telethon, okay? You shake them down, you're going to find some yen coming out of their pockets.
They're that crappy friend who owes you money and just never gets around to it. It's like, oh, yeah, I'll get you back next time.
I get paid Friday.
Next time.
See you Saturday, right? You're breaking my balls. So let's get into the negative consequences, not for the United States. Well, in the first world, it's inconvenient. In the third world, it can be deadly. 15% of the world's population, that's 1.2 billion people, still have no access to electricity at all. And they have no capability of getting it through green energy. Sorry, rich, white, privileged, gender studies feminist who wants to change quantum physics because it's oppressive. These people, these over 1 billion people in the world, just need energy to not die, and they can't do it with your Don Quixote windmills.
Send them a Tesla.
Yeah, send them a Tesla. It's subsidized as well.
That's living.
I was in Cancun. Like I said, we went to the actual villages in Cancun to see how people lived. We got out of the resorts. There was Copenhagen, Cancun, I don't know if it was Paris. They just had a recent summit at NYU. They always go to the cool cities, right? So It's not like they're going to the worst area of Tijuana to meet about climate change. Like we need to see how these places have been ravaged. No, we're going to a Cancun resort.
Support the people.
Yeah. So we went to a village and we saw, there was a person there who would work all week just to have enough energy, just to have enough fuel to light a fire so that they could heat a can of beans on a dirt floor in their house over an ironing board over a trash can. You think they can afford doubling your energy prices? It's something that a lot of people forget about. Something else, production of biofuels. Rich white guilt. Seems really good. It's actually led to at least 192,000 additional deaths the last time we ran these numbers in 2010. Because the crop is not being used to produce food, but energy because of government mandates. By the way, energy that often is not super efficient. So if you look at the worst estimates from the World Health Organization, they estimate that 141,000 people die annually because of man-made climate change. And that's a very generous estimate. So even if you just add the numbers, more people are dying in the third world because you are preventing them from having their own industrial revolution. Think about that. If there was some other foreign government who told the United States, no, you cannot have the industrial revolution. If they said, hey, sorry, Mr. Ford, no automobile. Sorry, no internet. Sorry, no factory. Sorry, we're not going to allow you to make things more efficient. There would be no United States of America. We wouldn't be able to broadcast this right now with equipment, by the way, that only 3 years ago would have been reserved for the singularly most professional, expensive studios in the world.
It was a mistake letting us
It was a mistake letting us get our paws on it. It's funny they say you're a climate denier. Listen, no one here denies the idea of climate change, okay? I don't know anyone here who even denies that humans have an effect on the overall climate on planet Earth. The question comes down to, is climate change a catastrophic event which is imminent? And is there anything that we can do to stop it if that were the case? If so, what are the direct effects of the Paris Climate Accord? How would that stop this Earth from warming 1 degree over the next 100 years? Although actually, remember, NASA said in the next 50 years it's going to drop half a degree, then go up a degree. What would this do? Because we're going to give up hundreds of thousands of jobs and we're potentially kill millions of people in the long term in third world countries, preventing them to thrive through innovation and energy. Because, paying an extra, 2-3-fold for your gas, for your groceries, for anything that requires energy or transportation here in the first world, yeah, it's cost prohibitive, it's annoying, it's inconvenient, it will plunge people into the depths of extreme poverty, kind of like you see with Venezuela, but it's not deadly. In the third world, it kills people.
Hey, this video is taken as a clip from the full show, daily show at louderwithcrowder.com/mugclub, where it's available exclusively $69 a year. That's less than $6 a month, less than 2 expensive cups of coffee, or you can feed an African child. But why would you want to do? Just buy coffee or join the Mug Club. Daily show, louderwithcrowder.com/mugclub. See you there. Don't feed children.